Hello, Rachel Nisatka, continuing the conversation on high growth personas, this time talking about the company founder, someone who is learning to make rocket fuel. Today, I am here to talk to a very specific group of people, the ones who are starting something from nothing, the ones making decisions no one else can make, the ones carrying the weight of outcomes that don't have clear answers. Humans. You know this feeling. There are moments in life where responsibility outpaces preparation, where expectations rise faster than our ability to meet them, where we are required to lead without ever being taught how. Hi, humans. I'm here to go a little bit deeper into high growth personas, a series geared towards helping corporate executives, mid-career leaders, and company founders align their human systems to their business so they can thrive because of, not in spite of, their humanism. Because founders aren't just building companies. They are building systems of people, decisions, and trust, often without ever being trained in how to lead them. And at a certain point, that gap doesn't just affect the founder. It becomes what determines whether the business actually scales. In earlier essays, I explored how corporate executives and mid-career leaders design and influence human systems. At developing organizations, however, human systems are, in reality, typically about one human, at least to start, the founder. And typically, founders rely on a core team of advisors and external experts to fill gaps in their skill set. For early stage startups, this makes a ton of sense. The founder is involved in every goal, decision, and relationship, with experts to help where it gets sticky. In this fashion, founders can be agile, adapt their business to real-time market needs, and execute quickly and decisively. So where's the problem? Success. Success is the problem. Because a founder who has been successful doing everything themselves doesn't understand why or how this has to change if their business is going to continue to grow. And suddenly, this founder is desperately trying to be everywhere at once, make every decision, and successfully lead a team of people who are never going to be as passionate or knowledgeable about the business as they are. There comes a point in every successful startup's journey where momentum picks up and the proverbial rocket ship prepares for takeoff. But the same people and systems who prepped the rocket for takeoff must level up if they are going to actually make it all the way out of the atmosphere. Would we expect space travel to happen with no training, with no intentional review of requirements and subsequent capabilities, without ensuring that every single person knows what is expected of them aboard the ship? Of course not. So why do we expect founders to have the skills, resources, and training to run high-growth businesses at scale? The reality is, if a founder wants intentionally designed human systems, and they do, or they'll fail, every one of their collaborators needs to take a step back and evaluate their role as needs change and business takes off. A founder who has been involved in every stage now needs to move in the direction of the corporate executive, sitting at the top, setting the strategy, and steering long-term growth and sustainability. Their core leadership team needs to get out of the day-to-day execution and start owning their own areas of expertise. Together, they must bring on more doers to reach their established goals and learn how to motivate those doers while staying out of their way. Because what once created speed now causes delays. What once drove clarity is now a key source of confusion, not because the founder isn't capable, but because the system hasn't evolved beyond them. How does this show up? They are the source of direction, but the bottleneck for action. In the early stages, direction is clear because it comes from one place. Decisions are made quickly because they don't require layers of alignment. The founder is in control of all aspects of the business. But as the business grows, the founder's involvement starts to slow down operations. More people requires more context. More work requires coordination. And without a system to carry this direction forward, progress continues to depend on the founder. But what once created speed now creates friction. What once felt decisive now feels delayed. Not because the founder lacks clarity, but because there's no system to translate one person's clarity into action at scale. They scale their instincts, but not necessarily their awareness. Founders are often successful because they trust their instincts. They move quickly, make decisions with incomplete information, and adapt in real time. But instincts don't scale. As teams grow, these instincts become embedded in how decisions are made and priorities are set without ever being explicitly defined. As a result, teams spend time trying to interpret what the founder would do rather than leaning on their own subject matter expertise and operating with shared clarity. And when that interpretation misses the mark, it doesn't feel like what it is, a systems issue. Instead, it starts to feel like a people issue, one that can't be solved with a broken system. They unintentionally shape culture through behavior, not design. Every reaction, decision, and moment under pressure sends a signal. Founders define what matters not just through what they say, but also through what they do, what's rewarded, what's tolerated, and what's avoided. In the early stages, this happens in close proximity, where people know each other well and can read between the lines. But as the company grows, those signals travel further and begin to distort. Without intentional organizational design, a topic with which most founders have zero experience, culture becomes a collection of mismatched interpretations rather than a shared understanding. They lose access to meaningful and accurate feedback as power dynamics increase. In the beginning, feedback is direct. The team is small, conversations are unfiltered, and truth is discussed and acted upon quickly. But as the organization grows, so does the distance between the founder and the team. People start to hesitate, soften messages, and filter unpleasant information. And the founder, who is still expected to make high-stakes decisions, begins to operate for the first time without a full picture of reality. Not because the truth isn't there, but because the human systems no longer support its movement. They're expected to scale outcomes, but never learn to scale the system that produces them. As revenue grows, headcount increases, and expectations rise, the underlying human systems often remain unchanged. The way decisions are made, work is coordinated, and people are led doesn't evolve at the same pace as the business. So the founder compensates. They work more, stay closer to everything, and push harder to maintain momentum. And it works until it doesn't, because effort doesn't replace infrastructure. And over time, the gap between what the business requires and what the systems can support becomes bigger and bigger until it's impossible to ignore. So, my question to all the founders and startup leaders out there is, how have your business operations and human systems evolved as you've started to experience growth? If this is something you've never thought about, I urge you to start. If this is something you realize you need help thinking through, I'd love to help you. Because as business grows, the people who are personally invested in the success of that business also increases. At this stage, however, effective founders still have an outsized impact, even if it feels to them like their influence is stagnating. But the question isn't whether your business can grow. You wouldn't be here if you didn't believe that. The question is whether your human systems can support that growth. And if they can't, the answer isn't to work harder, move faster, or stay closer to everything. Instead, it's to build something that can carry the weight with you. A system where decisions don't depend on you, where clarity doesn't originate from you, and progress doesn't stall without you. because growth doesn't come from doing more. It comes from no longer having to do it all yourself. Interested in going deeper? Join the waitlist for my 12-week Founders Coaching Pilot, helping founders map out actionable strategies and accountability programs to support rapid growth. Let's hit the atmosphere.